Hey friends, welcome to Naked in Truth, the podcast that's designed to open up your mind to help you break down walls and barriers in your life that you might not even know exist yet. But don't worry, every wall that we break down together on this podcast allows you the opportunity to level up and create your impact. With that being said, I think it's time for us to get honest, vulnerable, and naked in truth. Hello, and welcome back to the Naked in Truth podcast. It is me, Sari D, and we are dropping this episode later than anticipated because of the fact that your girl had her mic settings set up wrong, and therefore I ended up recording a whole episode without any audio, edited it and everything, and went to listen to it before upload, and what do you know? There was no audio. So it's really funny because this episode is all about stress and stimulants. And let me tell you, I was quite stressed when I went to go upload that episode and didn't have it for you guys. But this is really important for us to start off the episode with because, guys, I am so far from perfect. I am genuinely here to teach you what I've learned in my journey so that you don't have to go and make the same mistakes that I have. And I want you guys to understand too that my company, Authentically Fit, is all about owning your authenticity. And owning your authenticity means that you're okay with being imperfect. And that's a huge part of Naked in Truth, is being raw, real, and relatable. And I think that we're so used to life being this massive highlight reel where we think that nobody else is going through the same things that we are, that it's really important for me to break down these barriers so that we do understand that there's a lot more commonality in our lives than what we necessarily think. So with that being said, I know a lot of us are going to think that I am shitting on stimulants, aka the first stimulant that comes to our mind is caffeine. But I am not, okay? There's so much more to stimulation than just caffeine. We need to think about how we're mentally stimulated in regards to how fast-paced this world is moving. Now, when it comes to my journey in and of itself, if y'all have been following along, you know that I have been trying to heal myself from adrenal fatigue. Now, I'm going to throw the word trying in there because it is a very important word, because although I have been putting my best forward to heal myself, what ends up happening is that if we take on too much stress, it reverts everything that I just put into my effort of healing myself. Like, it is actually crazy how quickly this can happen when you've spent months building yourself up, trying to make sure that you're reducing stress to the minimum that you need for survival. And all it takes is just allowing myself to get wound up and hold on to stress that I don't necessarily need to, that it gets me to a point where I have actually lost months of progress. Now, there's so many different things that I want to cover on today's podcast that is extremely valuable for us as a whole, because all across the world right now, we are struggling with stress. You know, stress is typically described as a mood or anxiety disorder, but stress is so much more than that. And stress has so many implications in regards to how it can affect us long term. And there is absolutely nothing denying the fact that as a westernized society, we take on a lot more stress than what we need to. Like, have you guys ever seen videos of people in third world countries? And it's like these kids are laughing and they're dancing as they're going to haul water, even though they're barefoot, barely have any clothes, maybe haven't eaten 3 meals a day in a very long time, but yet they're still able to find the joy in life. You look at us where we have literally all of our needs met in westernized society, and yet we just find a way to keep attaching ourselves onto this stress, feeling like what we have isn't enough and feeling like we aren't enough. Now, this type of mentality is what is driving us into the ground. It's taking away our longevity. It's taking away years off of our life because we are stressing ourselves out to a point of sickness. We are stressing ourselves out to a point of burnout. And I am taking responsibility as one of those people, because if I look back on my life, it really isn't a big surprise that I ended up burning myself out, AKA seriously having adrenal insufficiency. The reason why I say this is because I look back and I used to just get myself, and still to this day, it's something that I'm working on, but I allow myself to get so wound up. I realize that I'm the one who's being addicted to stress. I'm the one who's holding on to this bullshit that I don't actually need to and making 10 times of a larger deal of something than what it needs to be. I know some of you are going to be like, oh, that sounds like me, right? And I get it, because it's so easy for us to be in a position, because we have all of our main needs covered, like food, water, shelter, safety. We have those covered, which therefore means a lot of the time we're just simply out there looking for a problem, because our physiological design does not know how to go through our day to day without solving these problems that are already solved for us. So we're out there looking for a problem to hold on to. And a lot of us don't realize that we are so fucking addicted to stress that we're taking away so much happiness that we could have in our life. We're taking away quality moments that we could have with people that we love. We are literally making ourselves sick from the amount of stress that we're holding on to when we don't need to. So if you remember a couple episodes back when I was talking about my adrenal insufficiency and everything that was going on with my heart racing, I was explaining to you guys that it's so easy for us to not realize that we are the ones in charge of what we hold on to, right? And it's really at a point now where if we don't start letting go of some of these things that really don't matter, we're going to be in a spot where we are getting ourselves sick as fuck. And I just want to take that responsibility that, hey, I could be healing a lot quicker right now if over this past year, I didn't allow things to affect me the way that I have, right? Yes, I've gone through a lot of stressful things. We had my husband's brother pass away unexpectedly, which was the hardest thing that I could ever imagine having to go through with him. You know, our house ended up having a bug infestation in the basement. And like, as much as you're like, oh my God, an infestation, it's not as bad as what you think, but it was still to a point where these things, they were like micro bugs. And you want to know where they were coming through? Coming up through our siding. Okay. So we literally we thought that they were coming from the ground through the basement. We dug up all around our house. We ripped the siding. We repapered. Everything is secure as it could ever be, but I'm trying to go through all of this and get this all done in the midst of trying to run to the hospital. You know, my poor mom snapped her kneecap in half, and like, just our parents freaking aging a little bit at all is stressful, let alone them getting to a point where they hurt themselves in such a large capacity that they need help with their day-to-day. And my mom is extremely independent. And I know that she's going to be listening to this and she's going to be like, Sarah, I didn't need you to do anything, but it's my heart. It's who I am. It's the fact that I love her so much that I never want anything like that to happen. I never want her to feel that type of pain. And sometimes we simply take on this stress of other people because we care so much, we love so much. And I know that some of my clients listening are going to understand this big time, because we've had this discussion where we do not need to be the kind of people who take on other people's stress because we care about them. We can still care about them and love them and help them and give them advice without taking on everything that they're carrying. And I think that it's really important for us to understand of how much of life we're really missing out on because of the attitude we're choosing to take with this, I'm so busy, life is so fast paced, I need to go harder, I can't take any rest. And in turn, taking on the stress and going faster and faster and faster and not taking any breaks is not getting us into it's not getting us into a position where we're any happier. It's not getting us into a position where we're any closer with our family members or our friends. Like, I am in a moccasin making workshop, believe it or not. So last weekend and this upcoming weekend, and it's a woman of Plains Cree descent that is running the workshop. And, being able to hear some of her storytelling prior to starting the workshop really hit close to home for me, because of the fact that in their culture, a very important thing is to make sure that you're taking on everything with a good mindset. Okay. So this means beating. This means cooking. This means simply brushing your child's hair. You don't do anything in anger, and you don't do anything with a bad mind, right? And I was like, oh, does that ever hit? Does that ever hit so hard? How many of us are feeling like we're just trying to rush out the door, that we're missing what our child is telling us while we are trying to brush that kid's hair, and we're frustrated because we can't find 2 matching ponytails and we're already 10 minutes behind, and they're saying that it hurts to brush their hair. And we're simply missing these moments that are actually so important in life. And we're holding on to this stress as if the stress is a priority. We're holding on to this busyness as if being fucking busy is going to give us this trophy or plaque at the end of our life that's going to give you some sort of accreditation, that's going to give you the fulfillment that you've always been looking for. But that ain't happening. That ain't coming. We're not going to be at the end of our deathbed receiving a trophy. We're going to be looking back wondering why the fuck we're dying 30 years earlier than we needed to because our heart is failing. We're going to be wondering why the fuck we didn't take the opportunity to spend moments with the people that we actually loved, and why we got so lost and wrapped up in the day-to-day bullshit that we lost focus of what our true priorities are, of the things that actually bring us joy, of the things that actually fill our heart. Okay? Because this is what it's getting to. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the show on Netflix. I've honestly only seen a couple of episodes, but it's called The Blue Zone. And what it is this gentleman has dedicated his life to really realizing that there are different areas across the world that seem to have more longevity in their people than you're seeing in other places around the world. So a lot of these people that they're seeing in certain areas are living to 100 or older. Now, one of the places that they go to and really see that there is a huge difference in how long these people are living is Okinawa. And sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But one of the ladies on there, it hit so close to home again, because she was like, so she was being interviewed and they were asking her, like, what do you really think it is that has allowed you to live this long and live this type of quality life? And it's all being translated, right? Because she speaks Japanese. And what she ends up saying is that she doesn't allow herself to get angry. Okay, so to me, in translation, she doesn't allow herself to get stressed. Holy shit. That hit so close to home, because I allow myself to get into a tornado, okay? Sometimes I think that I am so addicted to stress and forcing myself to be unhappy and forcing myself to keep going to a certain level before I allow myself to accept happiness, that it's become a disease, literally, aka my adrenal insufficiency. I'm the one that drove myself into the ground, okay? Yes, as I've talked about on prior episodes, my hormones have been up and down. There's been lots of things that I've done to damage them over the years. Nothing to a point that I can't get back. but I'm going to keep riding this slippery slope of up and down if I don't choose to change my ways. And in order for me to change my ways, this therefore means that I need to stop obsessing over stress. I need to understand that the stress that I'm receiving in my workouts, the stress that I receive on just a day-to-day of the way my body outputs, my mind outputs is enough. That's enough that I need for survival. I don't need to start holding on to Tom, Dick, and Harry for some sort of self-gratification that really is in turn just self-sabotage. It's constantly self-sabotage because I'm choosing to hold on to anger. I'm choosing to hold on to resentment. I'm choosing to hold on to unforgiveness. I'm choosing to hold on to the thought process that I'm not worthy. I'm choosing to hold on to the thought process that I'm not enough. All of this, I'm choosing to hold on to the uncertainty of what the future is going to hold. All of this shit is what brings us stress, right? That is the truth. So instead of being that person, why don't I be the kind of person that just lets it go? There's never been a time in my life that I have not made it through. The same with you. You're here listening to this podcast. You fucking made it through everything that you've been handed in your life. So that means that we don't need to sit and hold on to all of this shit that isn't making us a better person. This is the shit that's making us go backwards. This is the shit that's distancing us from opportunities. This is the kind of shit that is breaking our relationships and not allowing us to be present in the moment. And that's what I want to be. I want to be present here. I want to drop this stigma that go, and, grind mentality, fucking boss mentality. The only way for success is getting up at 3 a.m. and stopping at 10 at night. No, fuck this shit. I'm so over it, guys. We need to normalize rest. We need to normalize spending time with our family. Like, honestly, if we're looking at a 40-hour work week, the truth is that we could get away with working 4 hours a day instead of 8. Why? Because half of that day is just fluff. It's going and talking to your colleagues. It's sitting there on your phone. It's surfing the internet. It's taking an extra lap around the lobby, whatever it is that you like to do. But it's one of those things where we don't need to put this much time into work if we were applying ourselves properly, okay? The dream is not to work your ass off so hard that you have no relationships or sanity left. The goal is to flourish in your relationships, to flourish in your mental health, to feel like you've built something where you actually enjoy spending time at it, okay? That is what life is about, having freedom to go and enjoy these things. But honestly, we are at a point where we don't even take vacations because we're in such a big grind mode. I know that this is going to hit deep with a lot of people on here because I know that a lot of you are like me, and that used to be me. It took me years of running my business before I took an actual holiday, which was this past year, once I finally hit burnout. Fucking sweet, Sarah. Great job waiting until you burned yourself out to take a damn vacation. So if you got vacation time that's building up, take it. If you're that kind of person who's carrying over their vacation time into the following year, what the fuck are you doing? I don't mean to be a dick, but that company is going to run whether you're there or not. That company is going to have fucked up problems whether you're there or not. You are not the sole basis of the people that you work for. You have allotted vacation time for a reason. Fucking take it, okay? It's going to allow you to be a better person. It's going to allow you to be a better employee. It's going to allow you to be a better partner or whoever it is that you have in your life, whether you're trying to be a daughter, a wife, a husband, a father. The list goes on and on of who we are trying to be. And we aren't just our job, okay? I'm not just Sarah, the personal trainer and podcast host. I am so much more than that, right? But I can't just hold my whole identity onto fucking who I am with work and making sure that I work myself so hard that I can only allow myself to be happy once I get to X, because X is never going to come, because there's always going to be another goal that comes in there. Okay. And when we're used to holding on to stress and telling ourselves that we're not enough, that is what we will continue to do. Okay. We need to flip this mindset that what we're doing is enough, that taking rest is part of grinding. Okay. It's all about how we flip this mindset. And I've said multiple times on this podcast, if everybody's doing it, this is not something that you should be doing. Okay. Chances are it's something that you don't want to be doing, because everybody doing it is actually doing the wrong thing. So let's ditch this fucking addiction to stress. And in doing that, we need to understand how much we are being stimulated subliminally and purposely ourselves. I know so many of you right now are still probably not even eating yet today, and you've drank coffee all day long. Because let me tell you, you're so fucking busy, you don't have time to eat, right? But you definitely have time to pour that cup of coffee. And you're just going to keep going and going and going. You know, guys, I've been sober for a very long time. To be honest, I dropped my sobriety again last year when I went on vacation. So, you know, I've had some drinks here or there. I feel like I'm finally at a spot in my life where I'm not using alcohol as a clutch. I'm not using alcohol to escape from who I am as a person. I'm not using alcohol to define myself as a person or bring out other qualities in me that I wish I had without alcohol. I'm just simply enjoying a drink from time to time, but I can't really drink, unfortunately, when my adrenals are shot like this. It is absolutely insane the effects that I feel the following days in regards to anxiety, not being able to think clearly, my heart racing, this constant feeling of doom and gloom. Like it's not something that I'm able to do. But going back, you know, there's been many years of my life that I have been sober, starting drinking much too young, you know, at 12 years old. I've had stints as long as 7.5 years of being sober, which therefore has allowed me to use those years leaning on caffeine. Like I've been the kind of girl who can drink coffee from the beginning of the day all the way through to the evening, staying up all night while people are doing drugs, and I'm up until 6 a.m. with them sober drinking coffee or drinking energy drinks. You know, when I was in junior high, I was going through some of my largest bouts of anorexia, I would just lean on Red Bulls. That's all I would drink is fucking Red Bulls, maybe eat a banana. Like, you know, if anybody could handle their caffeine, it was me, right? I could still go to bed after drinking copious amounts, okay? And it's funny because I am no longer that person. Guys, I am lucky if I can have 150 milligrams of caffeine without setting my heart off now, okay? So if we're looking at caffeine regulations, it's about 400 milligrams of caffeine that a healthy person can have without, and like a healthy adult can have without seeing side effects. Now, if I can be completely honest with you guys, a venti coffee from Starbucks can contain more caffeine than that. How much caffeine are you intaking, right? We got people that are working in the office or, you know, hospitals, things like that. I think of my nurses, and, you know, they're slamming coffee all day long. And then when the evening comes, they're like, I need to get a workout in. I'm going to slam some pre-workout. So we're at a point where people are getting literally over 1,000 milligrams, a full gram of caffeine. But what people don't realize is that caffeine can kill you. Okay? There is caffeine-induced death. There is caffeine-induced psychosis. And there is a lot of symptoms and side effects that coffee can bring forth. Okay? So let's just understand that when you drink caffeine, it does release adrenaline. So if I'm already struggling with an adrenaline issue and my body's pumping too much adrenaline constantly in that fight or flight, The worst thing that I could be doing is pumping myself with more caffeine. It's creating more stress. It's creating nervousness, anxiety. Maybe there might be some sweatiness on the palms of your hands if you start drinking too much. You know, a lot of us start drinking so much that we start fucking with our actual sleep cycles. So our cortisol gets to a point where it's spiking at the wrong times, AKA our cortisol should start to rise a little bit when we wake up, peak roughly around that 10 a.m. point, and start tapering down into the evening so that we're able to fall asleep. But what happens is that when we start drinking coffee and we don't wait that hour and a half to 2 hours for our cortisol to properly be brought up to its maximum, and we start drinking that caffeine first thing in the morning, it actually blocks our adenosine receptor in our brain, and that in turn affects our ability to fall asleep in the evening. The reason why is because both the cortisol and the caffeine are fighting for the same receptor. And so even though caffeine increases our alertness and our wakefulness, it can actually create more fatigue when it's not being drank in a responsible way. And when I say that it's not being drank in a responsible way, we're not focused on any other nutrients aside from getting the caffeine into us. We are drinking this coffee black on an empty stomach. We are drinking it first thing in the morning and not allowing ourselves the opportunity to even have our natural wake sleep cycle be able to regulate itself, okay? When you're struggling with high stress, it's very easy for your cortisol patterns to go backwards. And so that's one way that I can always tell when I need to pull back and start relaxing. It's like that crazy amount of fatigue all day long to the point where you're dragging your ass. You're like, fuck, am I even going to be able to make it through this day, dude? And by the evening, you're fucking wired but tired. You're like, yeah, I could run a marathon, but I am still so tired. And it just becomes this disgusting fight for trying to relax, but your body simply doesn't know how, okay? So that's why if you have ever drank coffee first thing in the morning, but then all of a sudden you start feeling like you're crashing in the afternoon, you probably didn't have the right nutrients. You probably didn't allow for your wake and sleep cycle to properly regulate itself. So my best tips for drinking caffeine is waiting those 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking. Get a meal onto your stomach first. Or if you're not going to do that, at least allow yourself some fat sources in the coffee so that it's not completely wrecking your hormones and your digestion, okay? Because it's really easy to get gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, any type of really acid reflux. I know many people have drinking coffee and gotten acid reflux before, so I'm sure that this isn't going to surprise you guys. But the more that you're going to continue to allow that caffeine to go on an empty stomach, especially black, the higher chance you're going to have of these digestion issues, including things like ulcers, okay? These are not things that you want to have to deal with long term. And just because it's something that you have been able to do for many years does not mean that it's not going to come and bite you in the ass and you're not going to be able to do it anymore, just like me. Holla, okay? So we need to understand that this can actually, when you're drinking a bunch of caffeine, it can actually create more fatigue the following day as well. As we know, it can increase your heart rate. It can actually alter your heartbeat rhythm, which is atrial fibrillation. I got tested for that. There's nothing wrong with my actual heartbeat, which thank the sweet Lord, because you can't reverse that, okay? So we need to make sure that we're not pushing ourselves into such a heightened state of fight or flight all the time, and that we are in a rest and digest mode, and we're not just thinking that the only way that we're surviving this stressful, busy life that we're forcing ourselves into, okay? Just ding, ding, ding. I just want to remind you guys, we're in a westernized society. 95% of our day we choose. Unless you're living with somebody who is handicapped in some sort of way, or you're handicapped in some sort of way where there are parts of your day that's going to take longer or have more challenges, We choose our stress, guys. We choose our schedule. We choose what we put ourselves as slaves to. So I'm just going to leave that there. So we need to understand, though, that blasting ourselves with a shit ton of caffeine in order to make it through this unreasonable schedule that we've assigned to ourselves is going to burn us out, is going to put us into the ground. And if we don't actually hit burnout, we're definitely going to have long-term health issues, okay? So obviously, drinking too much caffeine can affect your sleep, like we talked about. It can affect high blood pressure. So because it's a stimulant, it's effective on our nervous system, which is what controls our fight or flight or our rest and digest mode. I'm sure that my mom won't have any problems with this, but when she has to be really careful with caffeine because she can feel her blood pressure increase if she has caffeine. Now, she used to be totally fine with caffeine, but again, just because she was good with it prior doesn't mean that as you age, it's going to be able to stay the same. So we just need to be responsible about this, guys. This is not me stressing on stressing. This is not me shitting on caffeine. This is me saying, yo, guys, we are in a position where we've really lost our values of what's most important in life. We're at a point where we're going so hard and so fast that we're not happy. We feel like we're accomplishing nothing, even though we're accomplishing so much, but we're not feeling accomplished in the areas that really matter, like our family, our free time, feeling like we are relaxed, feeling like we do get to make the choices of our life and what we apply ourselves to. Okay. So to really finish off this podcast, what I want to talk about is the overstimulation that we're seeing on the day-to-day. Now, moms, more than anything, and I'm saying this as moms or just like my female business women. And I say this about women more than men solely for the fact that women love to multitask. Okay. It's been proven that men are not great multitaskers. Females can be proficient at it. Just because we can be amazing multitaskers does not mean that we should be doing it. So I want that to hit home with you guys, because how many times are we trying to do 17 things at once and we're not doing great at really any of them, but we're getting it all done. And that's what matters, because we feel like we're stretched thin and we feel like we need to be utilizing our time to do 17 things at once. But what I've done to help calm my nervous system is to stop doing 17 things at once and to simply be present in the now. Focus on one task at a time. I don't need to have a podcast playing behind me while I'm trying to do something work related, right? Or I don't need to try to learn and work at the same time. Another big one for me is, because I work from my phone, I need to give myself some space, because we have never been in a position where we can get 50 messages at once. Like if we were in person, you would never be in a situation where 50 people are asking you one question or 50 people are asking you different questions at the same time, unless you were in some sort of press situation, right? So because we have indisposable access to people, because people have their phones and the internet and their social media accounts, and we all need to have 17 social media accounts, it can weigh on a person. And because the world is moving so quickly, especially the internet is what sped everything up that much more. We were not designed for this fast-paced life, right? As I mentioned, in the years of evolution, back to caveman times, when our brain perceived threats, it was threats like, are we going to be able to find food? We have danger running after us. Maybe our shelter is on fire and we need to try to put it out or build a new one. But we were not dealing with, emails coming at us and we're feeling fucking annoyed from that email and it's triggering us. And now we're just feeling stressed from that email because then we also have the radio on and the radio is telling you about how the world is evidently falling apart. And it's just one stressor after another. But even though these aren't necessarily threats to our existence, our body doesn't know the difference and it's going into that fight or flight mode. And when we're in that fight or flight mode more than we are that rest and digest mode, and if you remember a couple episodes back, I went over some of the details of the, physical differences of when you're in fight or flight versus rest and digest, like pupil size, breathing, heart rate, digestion, all of these things, because each has its purpose. And we don't need to be at a point where we are so overstimulated with everything that's going on and these multiple noises, and we keep forcing ourselves to do 30 things at once. And we keep strapping ourselves to these schedules that we don't really love, but yet we're not saying no to anything. And then we just drive that caffeine because that's the only way for us to survive. Guys, this is a recipe not just for disaster, but for death. Straight up. We are taking years off of our life to not enjoy the years that we're currently living. Like, what the fuck is the point of this? There's a lot of studies that have been done prior to the pandemic of what stress and anxiety were like. There has been some studies since, like, post-pandemic of what that stress and anxiety is like. And guys, it is through the fucking roof. We already know that. I've talked about it. I've talked about the suicide rates. I've talked about the fact that families have split up and still don't talk to each other. Certain people don't trust certain people. It created a lot of issues for a lot of people. And don't even get me started on the homeless and the people who don't believe in themselves. So they turn to drugs, that they just gave up on their life because they felt like they were too stressed and things were too hard and they didn't believe that they were enough. So they let go and now they're a drug addict on the street. We don't have to be this society. We don't have to be these kinds of people. So as I said, just because so much of society is doing these things, we don't have to be those people. We can be the difference. We can rebuild our society up to be something that makes us happy. We can literally have a life that's worth living, and it starts with us. Today, I am committing to you guys that I am done being my worst enemy. I am done being addicted to stress. I am done pushing away happiness because I'm waiting for, I don't know what it is. But I can tell you that as much as I have used stress as a security blanket, I don't feel safe in it anymore. And I refuse to stay there. And I genuinely hope that I have you guys alongside with me, because this is how we build a new society, one where our children can thrive, one where we'll still be around to be able to see our kids and our grandkids. We deserve this, guys. There's no reason why we need to hold ourselves to these expectations that don't serve us. So, as much as it sucked that this podcast didn't drop on Monday, fuck, was there ever a reason it didn't? Because even though a lot of the same information is included in here, it's a completely different podcast. And I didn't know, when I do these podcasts, I do these podcasts for you guys. But to be completely honest, this one was for me. So today, I want to leave us with one piece of advice. And to be completely honest, I heard this somewhere. I can't remember where I got the reference from, but oh, does it ever hit home? So if you today wrote down all of your stresses that are currently piling up in your mind on individual pieces of paper, and you threw them in a box, and you left that box for a week, and you came back to that box, and you opened up each piece of paper and read each stressor, how many of those stressors would still be an issue? The truth? Probably none of them. So much of what we hold on to and what we allow to stress ourselves out is something that isn't going to matter tomorrow. So don't wreck today over something that's going to be solved tomorrow. I'm so grateful to have you all here on this podcast. I know that we are going to be able to grow as a community, to be able to do it different, to own our potential, and to really create the life that we want to live. So I hope that this episode hits home. And if you would be so kind, whatever platform you're currently listening to this on, you have the opportunity to leave a review. And I want some feedback on this. You know, being a community means that we're in this together. So please give me some feedback. Does this episode resonate with you? Does this podcast resonate with you? Does it inspire you to be a better you? I really hope it does. And I'm just so excited for where we're going to be able to continue to grow from here. So this is where I'm signing off. I feel so good about this one, guys. And I just want you to know that it's okay that we don't do it perfect. It's okay if we don't do it the same as everybody else. But what's not okay is living a life that doesn't actually make us feel happy.
And that's another honest episode dropped. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Naked in Truth, where we come together every Monday morning to set the week off with intention. Don't forget to head over to our Instagram page at Naked in Truth Podcast to stay up to date on future episodes, guest speakers, and other kick-ass info that can help you continue to create your impact. And you know that reviews are so valuable when it comes to building a community of like-minded people. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please drop some love on Apple Podcast reviews and share this episode with someone who you think needs it. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I'll catch you next Monday. And don't forget, love always wins.